Rousseau was born on June 28, 1712, in Geneva, Switzerland, a city-state with republican traditions that would profoundly shape his political thinking. His mother died shortly after childbirth, leaving him to be raised by his father, a watchmaker, who filled young Rousseau's imagination with ancient republican heroes from Plutarch's lives. This idealized vision of ancient civic virtue contrasted sharply with the reality of 18th-century European society that Rousseau would encounter. At age 10, his father fled Geneva after a quarrel, abandoning Rousseau to relatives and apprenticeships. By 16, Rousseau had left Geneva, beginning a life of wandering that would take him across Europe and expose him to every stratum of society, from servants' quarters to aristocratic salons. Unlike Hobbes and Locke, who were educated at Oxford and moved in elite intellectual circles, Rousseau was largely self-taught and never fully belonged to any social class. This outsider perspective gave him a uniquely critical view of European civilization. While enlightening philosophers celebrated progress, reason, and commercial society, Rousseau would become civilization's most profound critic. Rousseau's intellectual breakthrough came in 1749 while walking to visit his friend Denis Diderot, imprisoned for his radical writings. Reading an essay question from the Academy of Dijon, "Has the restoration of the sciences and arts tended to purify morals?" Rousseau experienced what he called an illumination. His answer, which won the prize, shocked Enlightenment Paris. No, the arts and sciences had corrupted rather than improved humanity.
This discourse on the sciences and arts established Rousseau's reputation as a provocateur, but it was his discourse on the origins and foundations of inequality among men in 1755 that contained his revolutionary anthropological and political theory. Where Hobbes saw the state of nature as violent war, and Locke saw it as inconvenient but governed by natural law, Rousseau imagined primitive humans as solitary, peaceful beings living in harmony with nature. But this natural condition was disrupted by a catastrophic development. Rousseau wrote one of philosophy's most famous sentences: "The first man who, having enclosed a piece of ground, bethought himself of saying, 'This is mine,' and found people simple enough to believe him, was the real founder of civil society." Private property introduced inequality, competition, and dependence, transforming peaceful natural humans into competitive social beings. By 1762, when The Social Contract was published alongside his novel Émile, Rousseau had become one of Europe's most controversial intellectuals. Both books were immediately condemned and banned in Paris and Geneva. He fled to Switzerland, then to England, spending his final years in France under an assumed name. He died in 1778, 11 years before the French Revolution would vindicate his theories in Blood and Terror.
To understand how Rousseau reimagines political legitimacy, we must first understand his dramatically different account of the state of nature, one that challenges both Hobbes and Locke at their foundations. For Hobbes, the state of nature was a war of all against all. For Locke, it was a condition of freedom with inconveniences. Rousseau argues both accounts project characteristics of social man back onto natural man. They described people corrupted by society and imagined them in the state of nature. Rousseau's natural man is radically different, not yet fully human as we understand. He lacks language, complex reason, moral concepts, and self-consciousness. He is essentially a clever animal, satisfied with meeting basic needs: food, shelter, reproduction. He lives dispersed across the landscape, encountering others rarely. Two characteristics define natural man: amour de soi and pitié. Amour de soi is healthy self-love, instinct for self-preservation without comparison to others. PTA is natural compassion, instinctive aversion to seeing others suffer. These characteristics make the state of nature peaceful. Crucially, natural man is independent. He depends on no one, needs no one's recognition, compares himself to no one. This independence is freedom in its purest form. Physical inequalities exist, but matter little because there's no property to accumulate, no status to compete for. This directly contradicts Hobbes. Where Hobbes saw war as natural, Rousseau sees peace. Where Hobbes saw humans as naturally competitive, Rousseau sees these as products of society. The state of nature reveals that many characteristics we assume are human nature are actually products of specific social conditions. But Rousseau isn't suggesting we return to nature. That's impossible. Social development brought genuine goods, language, culture, moral sentiments. The question becomes, if natural freedom was lost through irreversible social development, and if existing societies are corrupt, is legitimate social order possible? The state of nature's peace was destroyed by private property. The first man who, having enclosed a piece of ground, bethought himself of saying, "This is mine," and found people simple enough to believe him, was the real founder of civil society. From how many crimes, wars, and murders might not anyone have saved mankind by pulling up the stakes? This isn't Locke's labor theory, where mixing labor with nature creates legitimate ownership. For Rousseau, property is theft, an audacious claim backed by force or fraud. Property introduces comparison and dependence. Once someone says, "This is mine," others must match them. Accumulation begins. Natural inequality becomes social inequality. Property creates dependence in multiple ways. The rich depend on the poor to work their land and recognize their status. The poor depend on the rich for access to resources. Everyone depends on social recognition. The independent natural man becomes the social man who relies on others' wills. This dependence corrupts amour de soi into amour propre, inflamed self-love that seeks superiority. You no longer care simply that you have enough. You care that you have more than others. You seek to dominate. You value what others think of you rather than what you are. Amour propre becomes the source of human misery. It creates vanity, envy, pride, and desperate need for others' approval. The richest person is enslaved to public opinion as much as the poorest. Faced with securing their holdings, the rich invented government through a fraudulent social contract. Let us unite to protect the weak from oppression. The poor, deceived, accepted. They thought they were creating peace. Actually, they were legitimizing inequality and trading freedom for subjugation. This is Rousseau's devastating critique. For Hobbes, the contract creates legitimate sovereignty. Rousseau responds, the war is created by property, and the contract legitimizes robbery. For Locke, government protects pre-existing rights. Rousseau responds, property rights are illegitimate, so government protecting them is doubly so. If existing governments are illegitimate, what hope exists? Rousseau's answer will be radical.